So my name is Dieter, which is very German. Um, I did my diploma in law, came out of Quake 3 modding, Wolfenstein, worked for Ubisoft, RTL, whoever that it might be, and worked for Deep Silver Koch Media, and decided out of madness to found my own company in end of 2009. So basically this is how we started. If somebody doesn't know this syntax, he should leave, because then he's in the wrong room basically. So what we have done is basically we founded a small company, privately owned, owner-led. By now we've reached over 45 million players actually. We've been on #1 on iOS in 60 countries and blah blah, bragging some stuff. But basically we've got tons of nominations in the indie field and some good awards. Just to give you an insight on who's doing the talking. And we've pretty much didn't focus on anything. So the talk before us where it says go niche, for us it's different. We don't go niche, we look at each game for each single target segment. Very small team, 7 people actually. This is us on the beach, which is our annual strategy meeting. And that's basically almost 7 million users reached per employee, which is good fun. And we publish on all platforms. So we've released our first Wii U title in November, have been on Nintendo Direct, we've been on Xbox One since last August. We started out as a PC mid-core, core publishing company, went through Steam, we went through retail, we still do retail with Activision Blizzard. We are doing a lot on mobile currently. So a good view on the indie market on each single platform there is now. And we've been working with all the big indies out there, so we did their collector's edition for retail. I don't know if people here are still familiar with the concept of physical goods. It's something you can take in your hand and you can actually put it in a computer. So it's been a good ride doing this. And what I wanted today is I wanted to share a very subjective view on the whole market. So I don't know how many people here are developers actually. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, okay, at least like 30% in the room, which is okay, because this talk is primarily aimed at you guys. But it's very subjective. Don't take me as the measurement for the market. So if you are a developer and you have a great idea and you think you can do the best game anyone could ever come up with, we've got several forms of how will I get the funds, what will I do, how can I finalize my game. And then there's the old age, you had the traditional publishing, you could give up your IP, you could get the full funding from your publisher, and maybe if the game really ticks off, then you're gonna get a little bit of the piece of the cake at a later stage. Or you could go now, which I see with a lot of indies, because there are new government funds, there's different means, there are business angels, you can just go into self-funding, self-publishing. Self-publishing really was a big hype about 5 years ago. Maybe even a little bit more when the first World of Goo and people like that, Braid, came up. Everybody thought, okay, I can be the next Edmund Macmillan, I will be the biggest development star out there. But I've seen a lot of studios fail, sadly, even though the games were really good, because the noise is just big in the indie scene. It's just a lot of titles coming out. I mean, not as bad as on the mobile market, but still too many titles to really be plannable and forecastable that you will succeed even though your quality is high. And then the third option, which is basically a joint venture with a company like us or with an agency. You can get somebody who has done some PR, has done some publishing, has done some campaigning, and can take that weight off your shoulders, but you can still keep the creative control over your own project. You can still have the vision, the creative control, the IP will be yours, but you will have to share the cake in the end, which is sometimes hard, sometimes good. And then there's crowdfunding, which I have to say is not for the indies from my perspective. It's crowdfunding only works if you have a bigger name. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, if you have a big name, you can actually get people to buy into your bigger name. It's either the IP, or you're a famous developer from the 80s, or you do Elite, or something like that. But it's again, I haven't seen many indies succeed with crowdfunding. There are exceptions, of course, like always. Or you could play the lottery, which is pretty much the same as publishing on mobile nowadays. So if you decide you will take door number 3, it's basically, okay, I want to keep in perfect control over my IP. I want to be the creator. I want to create the content. I don't want anybody to talk me into doing anything I don't want to do. But I don't really have the funds to hire more staff, hire people for marketing, for PR. I don't want to build up all that knowledge. Then probably you should be looking for a partner. And there are several, you can go several routes. Agency is a good route, but most of the agency don't work on rev share. They work on retainers or monthly payments, which again increases your budget. Or you can look for somebody who is doing just this specific part of your business, which also means you will be giving up the gold pot because you will not keep 100% of your revenue. It's clearly that you have to give up to get something in the end. I'm going to do an X course now. Has anybody seen this fish? It's do you see the tongue? It's actually a parasite. It clings onto the tongue of a fish. It's really out there, and the tongue dies, and then the new parasite becomes the tongue of the fish, and they both live together forever until the fish dies. And some people really feel that publishers are more like parasites. That's where the topic came from. We just jump onto projects. We hope that it's the best game ever, and we don't have to invest, and we're going to take a lot of cash out of the game in the end. But if your feeling towards publishers is that they are really just leeching off your creative vision and of your talent, then you probably shouldn't work with a publisher because it's really about partnerships and integrity. But if you can get around this thought, it's really interesting. Do some research on it. Then you should go for a publisher. But publishing business has changed from, at least from the indie perspective, or from my perspective. In the early days, it's nice that Tivula had the talk before us because it was also where I came from in the early days. I mean, you had local retailers who gave distributors a certain fixed amount of guarantee, and you could pick up your pieces. If I had a good strategy title like 10 years ago, I could go to Spain, I could say, okay, you've got 10,000 RTS players in Spain, and if my game's quality is 70 up on Metacritic or whatever that was during the time, they know that at least 2,000 people will buy a game in their stores, so they gave me a guarantee on 2,000 copies. And I could pick up my guarantees from each single territory. The distributors in the middle gave a guarantee because they needed the content, and then the publishers actually were able to give you a guarantee as a developer because they knew they could get back on the security from the distribution side. But that has completely been abolished through Steam and digital distribution. I mean, it's great that we have Steam, it's great that we don't have to pay 60% revenue to retail and only 30% to the digital channels, which still is a chunk, but it also means there's no security for the publisher involved anymore. I mean, we're just out there like the developers, which basically means there's no advance cash for any part of the business. And don't get me started on mobile, because mobile is right now, from my perspective, an extremely tough market. And we've been fortunate. I mean, we had tremendous hits, but right now it's not my favorite market to be in. I don't know if you know this quote by Michael Jordan, who said he always missed. I mean, it's basically he missed 9,000 shots, he lost 300 games, and the only way why he succeeded is basically he lost over and over again, and he learned that losing is part of the game. And I have to say the same for the games industry, which doesn't mean that it's not a tremendous and wonderful business to be in, but failure is just part of it. And we've experienced a lot of failures over the time. So we had, I don't want to go into all the reading, but we have had mobile launches, which had great features by Apple. We're top listed developer with Google. We get featured, everything. But as soon as the feature drops, the numbers drop. And being a smaller company, you can't just buy your way into the market. It's just too much money out there from VC, which makes pricing so high. Storefronts for me are not a marketing tool. They can just help you, but you have to do your marketing on your own and your PR. We had freemium games failing, even though they had 4.x stars ratings, because we couldn't just get them in front of the users. We didn't have effective paid acquisition. We had on Steam, we have 30 games on Steam. We have some which have over 90% positive user ratings, and they still fail us commercially because now we have 20 games on Steam coming out every day. We had outstanding games which were too special in positioning. Everybody told us from the press, well, we really, really love your game, but in the end customer failed us. So oversaturated markets, transfers from digital hype to offline didn't work. So we've been hurt quite a lot of times. From every single failure, we learned something: how to make it better, how to improve on that, how to pick up, how to just expand on the knowledge we gained and how to approach the customer the next time. And right now we have to unlearn a lot in marketing. We have to learn how is Twitch working, how is YouTube working. I have 3 little kids, 3 boys, and if I watch them, they don't watch TV anymore, and they don't read magazines, they don't read websites. I mean, their stars are YouTube. All that their friends talk about is basically YouTube, Twitch. It's a completely different approach to the target group, and it's very hard to have a marketing manager who has learned his profession over the last 10 years to unlearn what he has learned in his campaign work and get him to understand that the new target groups are working differently. There's a really, really good episode of South Park, if you've ever seen it, about YouTube, and Ike, the little baby, is actually calling his 10-year-old brother grandpa because he doesn't understand YouTube. There's much truth in South Park sometimes. But it's not all bad, and that's mainly the point. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, especially for indies. I'm going to run through some test cases. Obviously, we've published over 100 games, so it's really hard within 20 minutes to do an introduction and go to key points. So I'm open to questions afterwards, but just to take 2 cases. I mean, we've done a title last year, Pixel Heroes. Everybody told us it's pretty crazy. It was a roguelike pixel RPG premium model. We went to Steam, to iOS as a $7.99 title, so a high price premium. On Android, we went in a little lower, but we had a really good time because the company was small who made it. It was 3 people who didn't even found their own company. Now they do because they've got the money from us, but they were just friends doing a game. Why it succeeded is it had a really, really good trailer, which was completely a non-game trailer, but they did a trailer which looked like a Commodore 64 fan club from the 80s. And we always go for anti-cyclic release strategies, which is really important, I think, for indie developers. Very well-timed price promotions. Don't be too heavy on the discounting, even though the whole market is doing it. Just wait for the right slot for the promotion. Know how to work with Steam. Know how to work on Apple. Just don't keep prices too low all the time. Just always pick your prices. So that worked really well. I know 50,000 is not a lot for mobile games business, but for Steam at a higher price, it can be significant revenue. We also did a box for retail, just for the fun of it, with a poster and stuff like that. So, or we've been fortunate. 4 years ago, we launched a title called Bridge Constructor. I don't know who's familiar with Pontifex and the old bridge construction games, but it was basically a Me Too game. But no copycat, because we made it much more easily accessible, and we polished out on the best parts of the whole concept. We released it to iOS. I wasn't expecting much. The game turned over quite a lot. We put it out on Android again. It's doing tremendous. We have done 4 parts of the series by now. We launched it to Xbox One last August at $10 actually for a mobile game, which is 4 years old and costs $1 on mobile. We've done significant numbers on Xbox One as well at $10. And by now it's over 40 million players. So, and we're always working on the brand. And why did it work? Basically, it was an established partnership with a developer we've worked with before quite a couple of times, so we knew the processes. It was very, very well polished, because what we feel is the less core you get, the more polished you have to be actually, because the core gamers understand if there are like minor bugs or fixes needed, but the mass market just does not understand it. They just want to pick up the game, and if it doesn't feel right, they're just going to delete it in 2 minutes. Again, anti-cyclic. We released it in May, which was tremendous for us. There was nothing going on in May, basically. I know it's different now because this is 4 years ago, but still, I strongly believe whenever you're indie, go against, don't release in Q4, always go for May, June, July, or February, January. And we maintained the brand over 4 years now. So we did updates, we do updates regularly. We do a winter theme where you can actually have Santa Claus going over the bridges, or we do an Easter update with the Easter Bunny, and always try to leverage on those occasions. So just to sum it up, some lessons learned is product quality, sadly, is not the key to success. It's one of the main cogs in the whole machine, but it's not. We've had so many beautiful games which had awards, which had prizes, and everybody at the trade shows loved them, but the end consumer didn't just catch on to them because it was maybe a little bit too thought through. if your game is special, we think every aspect needs to stand out. It's not just the game, it's also the marketing, the PR. You always have to look for special angles, not just send out a few press releases and hope that somebody will come back to you. Market conditions are changing so quickly. I mean, I've run through retail business, digital premium, we've did some freemium, we've did console, and it's just changing so quickly. Right now it's VR out there. What personal view is I don't strongly believe in VR for gaming, but it could be the next big thing. But there's eye tracking, there's touch sensitive, there's so much going on. My personal perspective, again, no Q4. I would always try to avoid it being a small developer. And if you have a game which works, diversify on it. Just get it to as many platforms as you can, but with the adaptations to the specific needs of the target group. Like you have to have spot-on controller support if you're gonna go console. You can't just do a mouse emulation or anything like that. Really be thoughtful of your platform, of your audience, but really diversify, because it's so hard to get a brand working and really successful. And if you have one, you're also lucky. So work on that brand, try to elevate it. And one very important thing for me is, because I've seen so many indies fail with this, even if you have a success, always plan directly after release what you're gonna do next. Because you're gonna have a cash hole gap after you release the game, if you're working with a publisher, but even if you're self-publishing, you're gonna have a month or 2 months before Apple, Steam, anybody pays you. And I've seen really companies fail because they didn't think of that gap, which is weird from business case perspective, but yeah. So coming to an end, basically, yeah, sometimes it can be good if you join up with someone. You don't always have to be the one going alone, but of course, if you make it, best of luck and high respect to you. But I think partnering up with people who have expertise over the last 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever, is something good. And I think it's really because I always get this, okay, publishers are the bad guys, developers are the good guys. I've heard that so often over the last years, and it's just not true. I mean, we all love working in the games industry, for games, trying to do games, and if you find a partner you feel comfortable with, it will most likely raise the success for your independently developed game. So I can only kindly ask everybody to consider and always think about their own head, if they really think they are the best in what everything needs, because I'm not a game designer, I'm not a programmer, it needs studying, but at the same time I don't expect a developer to be perfect on marketing, because again it's like a source code. You trial and error, you have failures, and you learn from them, and this is not something you can just build up yourself within like a couple of months. So yeah, that's basically my insight over the last couple of years. Yeah. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'd happily answer them.
Which markets do you choose to go in first? And when localizing product, do you test in a certain market and learn from that and expand out, or do you simultaneously ship in all languages?
But as we are mostly moving premium, we are very focused on US and Central Europe. So we rarely test. I mean, premium doesn't have soft launch phases or anything. What we do is, if we see a game taking off, we add more localizations to it, because we know on Steam, for example, the new target group from Russia, for example, will pick up on it if it goes on Russian. But generally speaking, no, we don't do soft launches or test markets, because premium still in the Western Hemisphere, tastes aren't that different. I mean, we all come from the same arcade-ish background playing, so not really testing. If I do soft launches, if I do freemium, we usually do Scandinavia as a test market, because we start with one localization, which is English, and that works up there as well. And then we always try Canada, New Zealand, the usual, looking at prices, how much is marketing worth where. So
how do you determine if a game gets a retail version or is a mobile or yeah?
Well, like I said,
thing.
if it's successful, we try to diversify, try to do every angle, even if it means losing money on some. If you don't try it, you will never find out. We have found out that for retail games, which is really, really a small market by now, it's not a lot of cash in there for PC, unless you're AAA or is basically, if you have a hype going on Steam for digital, like if you have sold 500,000 copies on Steam, that's the moment where you actually have a target group and have a fan base, which will go for a collector's edition or some specific merchandise item. And we've also found out that character-driven games work much better in retail than abstract. We've published games like Frozen Synapse or Cube by Dan, who just won the award this morning, and they've been doing okay, but It's just too abstract, too digital. While games like Limbo, for example, or Meat Boy, which are very character focused, have done much better in terms of sell-in, sell-through. But only for retail and only on the collector's edition. I don't know about the digital numbers of those guys.
Hey, really nice talk. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on the future of premium content on mobile? How do you see that playing out over the next few years?
I think there will be a great market for premium content. Actually, my personal opinion is we've been fortunate because our premium experiences have been good. We don't need to be the 70% of the market. If I can have a success in the 30 or 20%, I actually personally think the next move in mobile and in gaming in general will be the Netflix model, as soon as the technical difficulty. So it will be subscription based, and then it doesn't make a difference if you're freemium or if you're premium. But you will have basically good content where people pay a monthly retainer, and I think the big discrepancy between freemium and premium will go away when these models kick in. I mean, they have been established on movies, they have been established on movies and music, and I think it's really a matter of technology to get it to games, starting out with the casual market and then being more core as the technology evolves. So I personally think there is a big space for premium content out there. It's not scalable. It's different to freemium. It's not scalable, but for smaller companies, it's a significant and important and good market.
Well, do you guys ever start up your own like in-house development studio?
Yeah,
And,
we already have.
Yeah, and okay. So if so, then how do you choose between purchasing an IP and then publishing it versus starting up a new IP and form a new studio to make that from zero to success?
Yeah, well, we just recently started, so it's too early to tell, honestly. Right now, what we are doing is I've hired coders and game designers and so on, but basically for helping indies port their games to console, because a lot of studios we work with, they can create a great PC game on Unity most of the time, but they don't have the experience or the dev kits or the agreements to port the game. So we take care of that part. And right now we're in the phase that we are fail-fast prototyping internally, just to see which ideas stick and which don't. And I hope at some point we can move into a real development studio being part of our company. But it's too early. I can't really say yet how we will determine owning IP against not owning IP. What I've learned is basically the IP is not worth that much if you don't make it successful. And if you make something successful, your development partner will want to continue working with you because he had a good experience. So most of the time, even if we don't own the IP, the development studios stick with us and we just work on the IP. I don't need to own an IP if I don't invent it. So. Yeah.
So a question about developer expertise. If you've got a hit on your hands on Android or iOS,
Yeah.
then you want to cross-compile it to,
Yeah.
you've got Wii U and UU and whatever else sort of goes down there. Do developers have those sort of skills to be able to sort of go ahead there, or do you help them out? Or
We help them.
because if you've got a hit on your hands on one of those 2 or 3 premium platforms, and the idea of why wouldn't you want to spend all those resources doing a version 2, a reskin with additional content to scale it that way, as opposed to getting diminishing returns through smaller and smaller products?
Well, it's basically being privately owned and privately financed. I always do every business case is worst case forecasting, and I think that I can take a lot of risk out of the market if I just spread it everywhere. And that's why I always try to really take every single platform, look at it and where it's going, and if there's potentially a hit to be made, I think it's good to invest the resources, even if it's just a smaller fragment, because it comes together in a very nice larger picture. And with 7 people, you don't need zillions. You just need a couple of 100,000 in the year to really get by and to grow and be sustainable. And to be honest, I'm a fan of every hardware. I really dig every single platform out there, even like really everything. So I like working on everything. Yeah.
Thank you. We can have one more question.
So if I'm an indie developer and want to publish my game, what should I do when I come to Head Up Games and say, okay, I have this awesome idea and go for it, publish it? So do you need a kind of prototype or some cool marketing stuff that we've prepared, or what?
Well, the most important part for us is we're not a big funding company, so it's better if you bring funding. which is a good start. But in the end, just call us. We'll have a beer and talk about it. I mean, we've signed stages where it's early concept. We've signed prototypes. We've signed finished projects. It's really a personal level of connection between us and the developer. And if we've bought into pretty crazy ideas. I mean, we publish a game about cancer. I mean, now that Dragon Cancer is out, everybody's talking about the subject, but we've made a game which is about the 5 phases of dying, because there is a person who has fatal diagnosis of cancer, and it's very touching, very, very emotional, but no major publisher would have touched a subject like this because it's just not mass market. But we've put it out on Steam, we put it out on Android, we put it out on iOS. Next move is going to be on console, and users are happy, and I think at some point PewDiePie will pick it up and we'll go zillion. I mean, that's always the hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.